going. All right, welcome back to another episode of Against the Ropes. I am Gio Garcia. I am alongside Christian Mosqueda. Episode 70, right?
70?
We are back in the studio. Happy New Year, everybody. And we got some special guests, right? Some gentlemen here.
He almost joked saying that. It hurt. You could tell.
I was going to say very special guests, but I'm like, nah, not yet.
Downgraded.
Yeah. We got lead writer for Supreme Boxing, co-host of Just Boxing Live, Mr. Anthony Stax Saldana. Hit him with that round of applause, man. Yes, sir. Welcome, man. First time here.
Man, yeah, first time, man. I finally got invited.
Yeah. He asked how many times?
Sean's been here like 12, and you know.
We always tell Sean to bring you, but he's all like, he's busy.
I just tell him Stack said no this time.
Yeah.
Not this time. He's a little busy.
He's too busy.
You know, he did try to start a beef between us.
Yeah, he did.
He did. We thought you didn't like us, and you probably thought we didn't like you.
He's like, you know those guys? I'm like, nah, I don't know him. Ooh, he says he don't know you.
You know what it is, right? Divide and conquer.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we have Mr. Sean Fitzgerald here, host of Just Boxing Live. He is back, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
By popular demand.
Thank you for having me.
That's right.
Yeah. What's new?
Man, New Year in boxing. Starting off strong. I think we had, 1 weekend off the beginning of January, and now I think for like 52 weeks straight, we're going to have boxing on all major networks. I mean,
yeah, I didn't know what to do with myself that weekend. I was like, man, there's no boxing. Like, what do I do? Man.
Hey, girl, you want to kick it?
I'm free.
Oh, now you want to hang out.
And then you took her to Vegas.
That was fun.
It's all good.
Oh, that's right. All you cats were in Vegas
No,
checking out Tyson Fury, right?
Gio didn't go, man.
Oh, you didn't go?
Oh, yeah.
I sent my camera crew over there.
Oh,
No.
Yeah.
The camera.
They didn't let him
You guys
go.
do the light work.
You can't go to Vegas twice in a calendar month.
Yeah, it's rules.
Rules.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so what happened in Vegas? With
Stax.
the meet and greet, not other.
I was going to say,
We'll
you're
get
not
into that later on.
You're not supposed to ask that.
Yeah, what happens in Vegas, you know.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
No, the meet and
bullshit.
greet was cool, man.
Yeah.
It was for Capatil Gym
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
out there. He is actually Tyson Fury's cut man, and he's a big supporter in the community.
Mhm.
You know, he helps a lot of kids out. He ran across a financial burden for his gym, so I don't know, just like 48 hours before that whole meet and greet, the WBC got together and said, hey, man, let's take Tyson Fury out there. Let's do a little meet and greet. Let's try to raise some money to save the gym. So had a lot of people go out there. The meet and greet was actually free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was donations to take a picture with them or get autographs. They raised some money. Had a few people go out there, and I think they took care of them for like 6 months, and then somebody else took care of them for 6 months, and then Rick, forget his last name. He's the manager of Jose Ramirez. He showed up, him and his crew, in like 3 Rolls Royces, and wrote a few checks.
Yeah.
Damn, that's tight.
It was cool, man. It was a good thing, you know, because he did Tyson. He saved Tyson's ass in that last fight, man.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so that cut was nothing nice, and
Mm-hmm.
Capatil did what he had to do to keep that fight from being stopped and Tyson losing that fight, because it would have been a technical knockout if they would have had to stop the fight because it was caused by a punch. So now he's going to be making millions and millions going up against Wilder the second time. So
Yeah,
basically the least he can do. And, you know, Tyson was cool about it, man. Once, I don't even think Capatil asked him. Somebody else asked him, and he jumped on the opportunity to help out Jorge. So it was a good event,
It was
man.
dope.
Yeah. Yeah, if there wasn't a award for Cutman of the Year, that's Capatillo's without a doubt, because that was a nasty, gash, and
Early
any other
too.
and early
Happened so early, yeah.
he kept targeting it, so any other fighter that fight could have been stopped. So
Yeah.
Now
He
you
also
guys-
could have been disqualified, man. I mean, the cat was like openly raking his eye in the cut, trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty gnarly.
Now you guys have an actual award, right? Supreme Boxing for Cut Man of the Year. Is that right?
No.
No, you don't have one.
Not
I
for
saw that
Cut Man.
somewhere
yeah,
else.
that's the one I didn't see.
Oh, that was the wannabe Supreme Boxing. Oh,
No,
that
I
must
think
have
there's
been
an
someone else.
MMA magazine that's doing
Oh,
it
okay,
for
okay,
boxing,
okay.
MMA
Okay.
cut, man.
Okay.
And Big Surge is in the running for that.
That's the one I saw.
Yeah, we
shout
have
out
a-
to Serge Estrada.
Yeah, big shout out to Surge, man. He does. He stays working, whether it's in boxing, whether it's in MMA. And Surge is a good guy, man. He was an Army medic for 22 years.
Damn.
So he was a combat Army medic, got out, suffering with PTSD, and had to do something, man, and decided to go into boxing and has been a cut man for boxing. So good dude, man. He stays out there where I stay out there in Apple Valley. So
Shout out to the hood.
that's right.
Oh, God in there.
Don't know who God is or them is. Know who God is, but not them.
Not them.
Not them. Hey, but talk
Facts.
about Broner. Did you see that, man? That he was asking
happened?
people for $10 on his to please that he was doing bad and he needed $10.
No
People
way.
Cash app
Really?
him. Yeah, and put his cash app on his Instagram.
He's
and-
trolling, right?
No, I don't know.
I'm sure some people donated. I mean, he does have fans.
Well, he did have to pay what $250,000 or $350,000 to that young lady
oh,
that he didn't show up to court for.
How much?
Like $250,000, I believe.
Damn.
So to put it in context, did he assault a minor or did?
He assaulted somebody,
Mhm.
and he took him to civil court,
Mhm.
and he never showed up. So the judge ruled against him and awarded that young lady.
Damn. You guys
Some
remember when he
money.
passed up on that Rock Nation
Yeah.
deal?
Was it 8 million, 4 million per fight, 2 fights a year, something like that?
Yeah, I think it was 40 million. Five
for
fights.
5 years, right?
Yeah, 5
So-
years, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's when didn't he have the quote where he said it was like slave labor or something like that?
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
saying all types of stuff
He was-
that he was
yeah.
going to make a lot more in the future.
Yeah.
that-
So I was actually wrong. He was hit with an $830,000 judgment. $830,000
Shit.
just for not showing up to court.
Damn.
So now he's asking for donations
Yeah.
and hope that he can raise 800,000.
Crazy.
Huh, interesting. Are we going to see him in the ring anytime soon?
I
He has
think
to pay
so.
someone $800,000, so
So,
I
yeah.
think
Yeah, he'll be in the ring.
Where can he go?
there's one place I know where
Nowadays.
you can get that kind of money. It's in a boxing ring. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, man, somebody like him and Blair the Flair Cobbs,
Yeah.
you know, they can they're both shit talkers. You know, they
Yeah.
get in the ring and it'd be an interesting fight. There's some interesting matchups at 40 and at 47 for Broner.
That's a pretty
Yeah.
big step up. I mean, Broner's not nobody. You know what I mean? Just
No,
because
he's not,
just because
yeah.
he can't beat Pacquiao
Yeah.
and stuff like that, that doesn't mean like Blair goes from where he's at to
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm
Yeah,
just saying
like,
it would be a good
possibility.
fight, you know? I mean,
sure.
I mean, Broner has only lost to Maidana, Pacquiao,
Yeah.
Sean Porter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And who else? One more?
he
I think it's
fought to a draw,
draw
with Jesse
with
Vargas.
Jesse Vargas.
Vargas. Does he have a fourth loss?
He might. I'm
I
not
don't know. I
sure.
don't remember. But Blair Cobbs is actually going to be on the undercard of Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
He's fighting a guy who's at 23-2. So I think that's a pretty
That's a good
good
test.
step up.
Yeah.
I mean, Cobbs has like 13, 14 fights fighting a vet. I think that's a pretty good step up.
Yeah.
And he's making noise too.
But he was down in his last fight.
He was.
He's shown some vulnerability a couple
Yeah.
times. I
Mike-
think in previous fights.
Mikey
So.
Garcia. That's the fourth loss.
Yeah, Mikey.
Yeah, Mikey.
Mikey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
So,
So I mean, that's world class competition we're talking about, though. You know,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a step
for
up
Adrien
sure.
Broner. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Broner's always going to be marketable. I mean, people are going to want to.
I'm watching his next fight.
People are going to pay, or they're going to tune in to see the bad guy, you know, get another whooping, quote unquote. But yeah, it's kind of hard to really get on board with everything that's going on, like behind the scenes. He's just.
You know what's interesting is I had hoped at one point in time to do like a decade show where we reflect on things that happened in the decade. And one of the things I was wondering is what is the biggest disappointment of the decade? And I kind of expected for the people to come on that show to say Adrien Broner, despite the fact that he had a lot of success in that decade too.
Yeah, early
but I
on.
think people look at him and they tend to think of it as a letdown because like what you hear or the narrative that gets spun by
Yeah.
most people is that he could have been something more than what he is. Like he had the talent to go beyond where he is, but he's actually accomplished a lot in
Yeah.
boxing. He's fought a lot of big names.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a stretch maybe to call him that big of a disappointment. Like,
I think it's just based on his persona. I mean, just the stuff that happened outside the ring. Where you're just
Yeah.
like you have this platform, you know, and when you're young, you're gonna make mistakes. But you're growing.
That's
you
not
know?
an excuse though.
No,
yeah,
that's
it's
not
not
an
an
excuse.
excuse.
No, but
that's like the same thing people said about Shakur Stevenson and
Yeah.
you know.
but what
like-
I'm saying is like he's older now. He shouldn't be doing these things now. How old
Yeah.
is he now? 20. On his
8?
yeah, I mean, you
98?
could say that he shouldn't do them then either.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
No, but I mean, it
Like-
gets to a point like you're just like, why are you still doing that stuff now?
Yeah.
You kind of get that pass when you're young.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like
I feel like some people give it to you. I'm not so inclined to get like Shakur Stevenson. Everybody kind of swept that under
Yeah,
the rug and said he's a
exactly.
young guy. Like he's still learning. He's still
Yeah.
doing all the like. Come on,
Mike
man.
You're
Tyson
talking about the
too?
video, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Our video got taken down on YouTube and Instagram.
Oh, really?
Or Shakur.
By the powers that
We
be.
posted up the surveillance videos of him
okay.
beating up a dude and a woman, and they took it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people don't talk about it.
That's the powers that be right there. That's somebody in there.
That's
Like,
the machine
the
at
machine
work.
At
It,
work.
it happens, man.
And they did a great job
The
because
machine
nobody
at
talks
work?
about it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Like
Like
PR person.
I was watching that Aaron Hernandez documentary the other night, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They were talking about who can kill, you know, 2 people and then just go play a whole football season,
That is
Mhm.
right? And I'm thinking to myself, Ray Lewis. But guess what? It gets swept under the carpet. You know, I mean, yeah, they found him not guilty, but come on, man.
Don King caught a couple bodies too, right?
Twice.
Yeah. Twice.
2 times. He did serve. He did serve one.
For
I think a
manslaughter.
6-year sentence for
Yeah.
manslaughter. The second time.
Mm-hmm.
First time, I think he got off.
Yeah. It's like self-defense or something.
They called it self-defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say they called it. I mean, allegedly,
crazy,
whatever,
man.
however you want to say it. I don't know what happened, but
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
yeah.
Anybody else watch that, Aaron?
Yeah, I saw
Hernandez?
that. It's crazy, man.
I haven't watched it.
I'm like the only person on the planet who hasn't seen
You
it.
I
haven't?
haven't watched
Oh, I
it.
gotta see
But I
it,
did
man.
start listening to a podcast, which I think is pretty similar to that, where they talk about his infancy more, like the steps that
In
led
depth.
up to what happened, which is probably similar to the documentary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that happens, man, not just in football, but it happens in boxing as well. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, you have with Aaron, it just seemed like it was a whole tragic turn of events from the time he was a kid to the CTE to everything he's seen, and it led to his self like imploding, you know,
Mhm.
and doing the things he did. And I'm not making any excuses for him, but
Yeah.
it's kind of the same way in boxing. You know, these boxers come in, and I've talked to Sean about this. We've talked about this plenty of times. We as fans always see the outer physical elements that happen, the broken hands, the cuts,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't see the internal damage that these guys are taking.
The trauma.
You know, we don't
Or even the aftermath. You don't
Yeah.
pay attention
Yeah.
after they fought, 2 days after, 3 days after.
you know, and then even events leading up to certain fights. You know, there was one of the first fights I went to was Canelo versus Cotto. And the night before, there was some fights going on, and there was a cat that didn't even have a ride up to Vegas to go to his fight. He was stressing on his old lady. They were fighting on Facebook. They were fighting on social media. I ended up giving him a ride to Vegas. Me and Big Surge ended up giving this cat a ride to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
He took the first L of his career, but it's just all bad, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not focused, if you got other things going on, if you're doing dope, if you're getting hit in the head, I mean, it's just can be a lot of little things that just lead up to the violence, you know? I mean,
You know, speaking of that, it's interesting because we were just talking about the biggest disappointments of the decade,
Mhm.
and I said how some people may say like Adrien Broner. To me, it's like Edwin Valero.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you look at what Edwin Valero, what he had the potential to do, and it was right at the beginning of the decade, you know, that basically all this went down. But you look at what he was kind of ready to accomplish in his career, and the platform that he was just beginning to get on,
Yeah.
and then you see how things turned out, and it's heartbreaking in so many different ways, you know. But Edwin Valero is like one of the biggest disappointments of the decade to me.
Without a doubt. I mean, I
Yeah.
think he was slated to fight Pacquiao, right, at one point.
yeah.
At one point.
I don't know how true that is or wasn't, because he was always compared to Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
By that time, Pacquiao was already kind of fighting at heavier weights,
Established.
had kind of went up to 140 and was getting ready to do 147. So I don't know how realistic that is, but I will say that in the few fights that I got to see Edwin Valero, he was explosive.
Yeah.
He was exciting to watch. I can see why people would make that comparison stylistically. Not that he would have become like an 8th division world champion, but you could see he was primed. He was like ready to do something. You know, and then he had some incidents with head injuries, things like that. And then, of course, you know, the tragedy in the way that his family and his life ended. And you look at it and you just go, you know, it's so disappointing for so many reasons.
It really is. And then you see fighters afterwards, after their career, right? And I was talking a little bit about this with Christian Rodriguez in Vegas, and it's like I had wrote an article a few years ago, and talks about De La Hoya. It was right after De La Hoya had got arrested for that DUI in Pasadena, right? And these fighters that go into the ring and they're at that championship level fighting in front of 10, 15,000 people, they reach a certain high, and then when they're not in that ring fighting anymore, they have to look for that same high, whether it's alcohol, whether it's the drugs, whether it's the coke, whatever it is, you know, they have to try to find that high again, you know, and you get hit a certain amount of time, you start getting that pugilistic dementia setting in. You start having different types of chemicals released in your brain, and that's what leads to the crazy thoughts, the suicide, the drugs, everything else. I mean, I think Christian was asking Tyson Fury about it, and he was talking about during the holidays that he was starting to fall back into depression. And he needed to get back in the ring. And as soon as he got back into training camp in January and he came out here to Vegas, he was starting to feel normality again. You know, he wasn't in that dark spot anymore.
It's almost like as like these kinds of people need that structure, keep busy, stay busy, because you can't leave them alone for too long. Like with Aaron, I guess it was bad for him to be so close to home. They were hoping that he would move west, right, to find a team that kept them busy, kept that structure, kept them out of trouble in a sense.
And going back to that, it reminds me of Mike Tyson, because I don't know if you guys watch his podcast. He talks about that a lot. Like when people ask him, do you still hit the heavy bag? Do you still jog, go running? He's like, I try to stay away from it because all that kind of gives me flashbacks. Like I want to just turn into that killer in the ring again. You know, like I just try to stay away from all types of competition. Just want to live in peace and not remember all that stuff that he was going through as a fighter.
See, and I guess it affects everybody different, you know, because like with Fury, for instance, he needs it. That's what he needs, because when he's not in that place, that's when he falls into a dark spot, you know. So I guess it just affects everybody different. Where Mike Tyson, for instance, like you're saying, he wants to be away from it. He doesn't want to be in those crowds and be part of that hype. And
he said he doesn't even go anywhere. He's like, I don't want to be exposed to drugs, parties, alcohol, nothing.
That's a good thing for him, you know.
Yeah, 'cause he's older. I mean,
if that's he tears it up at the Starbucks, though. I seen
it. I seen that. Yeah, he did that little.
I still wouldn't want to take a punch from him. I'll tell you that.
A little bit of shadow boxing he was doing in there.
Is that what you call that?
Man.
And it's crazy too, because when Tyson Fury was on, I think he was on Joe Rogan. They talked about the same thing too. Like, I think it was leading up to, what was it leading up to? I think it was leading up to the fight. Like he was talking about coming back from depression, and then he was like, and then Joe Rogan kind of asked him jokingly, like, "Well, you're never gonna go to that again, right? The drugs, the depression." He's like, "Hey, you never know." And it was just kind of like, "Wait, what do you mean?" He's like, "Who knows? Like, I may win or lose and still feel down, you know?"
Yeah, you don't choose it. Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't choose to be depressed. It's you know, so it's from his standpoint, I think it's probably healthy to consider it like it's something that could happen at any time, because there's a lot of things that you need to do to maintain.
He's aware of it, that it can happen. So
there's a lot of things you need to do to maintain, coming from kind of a place of personal experience, you know. And I think that if you lose sight of all the rituals and the things that make you healthy, then it's very easy to get unhealthy again. You know?
And you know what makes it worse is when people that aren't fighting depression try to tell you, oh, just go outside and get some fresh air. Or just get some sunlight. Just get some good vitamin D or whatever. It's not that easy, man. I mean, when you're not right in your mind, and then you're trying to cope with narcotics or something else, you know, then you're really not right, you know. And it takes a minute to get back into that normalcy, if you ever do, because it'll always sit in the back of your head. I mean, and people fight it for different reasons, you know. I mean, and I can't even imagine having the depression on top of the CTE, on top of drug use, on top of everything else, you know. So it's
and you have $5 million at your reach that you can
just
do whatever you want with it.
Well, give me an ounce of coke, you know.
Going back to the Shakur and the young fighters getting that pass. Something was similar with Aaron, right, where he had like an incident where he was young and he got covered. And
well, they drafted him. These football teams know everything about you. Like they know all this stuff is going on.
So that makes me feel it makes an athlete feel more invincible. Like I can get away with this.
I can do whatever I want.
I could, you know.
It's the money, man.
Yeah. I'm still gonna play for the Patriots. I'm still gonna make $40 million. Still gonna win Super Bowl rings.
Somebody had asked me about Manny Pacquiao and about him fighting again. You know, me and Sean have talked about we're as media, we're nobody to say when a fighter should retire.
A lot of media members do. I just personally don't feel that way.
He personally doesn't feel that way. I think I have that as a media to give an opinion.
Yeah.
Right. But in the end and in the long run, it's up to a fighter and it's up to his family members and to the people closest to him to tell him, nah, man, this is it. You need to stop. Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is say it was Bob Arum, say he was still with Top Rank, even though he's with PBC, and Bob just says, hey, you know what? I can't morally allow you to do this anymore under Top Rank. I can't allow you to fight anymore. After that fight with Thurman, he was shook. Even though he won that fight, during that post-press conference, he looked like he was going to go into shock. He was shivering. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to talk. It wasn't the normal Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
You could tell he was hurting, right? But the thing is back to, like I was saying, if Arum were to say, hey, can't morally allow you to do this, it's just like a racehorse, man. It's sad, but somebody else is going to pick him up.
Yeah.
Whether it's Golden Boy, whether it's, PBC, whoever, somebody's going to make millions of dollars. There's still money there to be made.
Yeah.
And they're going to make it because the fans want to see it. I mean, look at what De La Hoya did with Tito and Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bad.
Whether he made money on it, whether he flopped or whatever, I'm sure he got paid.
And it's also, I think, difficult because you have guys like Hopkins. Obviously, he's a rare breed, but I'm sure most people are like, you don't have to fight anymore. Don't do it, right? And he went on and created history. I understand most people aren't going to do that, but it's tough. Like I would stay out of that stuff. Like, I don't think I should have an opinion.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, I don't know them personally, so.
You'll hear me say things like, I really hope that he doesn't fight again, because that's true. There are some people where I'm like, I just don't want to see you get hurt. And a lot of times it comes from a place of respect, and it's because I admire you, right? So, like, you look at guys like Mike Alvarado. I've watched a lot of Mike Alvarado fights. I've watched a lot of them live. He hit some of the most memorable things, like, Rios and Alvarado won. I was there at that fight live, and that will live with me, you know what I mean, forever. So that fight was fire, you know what I mean? And so when you see him now, and he's trying to make the comeback, and he's older, and you see the vicious knockout like in the last fight, you look at it and from a place of respect, and also I kind of say, I hope I don't have to watch him fight again, because you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see him get hurt, and that's where it comes from. But I'm not one to tell a fighter, like Roy Jones Jr., who probably heard for years and years and years, you need to retire, hang it up. Like, at the end of the day, there's something inside these cats, you know what I mean? And it's, they're exercising it. And Roy kind of took a different approach. He didn't fight world championship contenders for his entire career. Towards the end, he was fighting locally in Pensacola, fighting guys who weren't necessarily big name guys.
So quote unquote journeyman.
Yeah, things like that. And, still drawing a crowd, people still coming out to see him. And at the end of the day, if he can do that in a way that is comfortable for him, and it's helping him, exercise some of these problems that we know fighters are going to have when it comes up to retirement, and exercise whatever is going on, in his heart, then, more power to him. I'm not one to tell him like, hey, you need to hang it up, retire. But there is a point at which I don't want to see guys take any more punishment, and I don't want to see them risk their health beyond, hopefully they go on to live long and fruitful lives. You don't want them to jeopardize that.
That was my opinion with Klitschko. Sorry, Stax, but people are like trying to cheer him on to come back. I'm like, what else do you have to prove?
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I agree with Sean to an extent there. If it's somebody like Roy Jones or somebody that takes those type of steps, where he's not getting in with these championship level guys, right? That type of caliber of fighters, and he's fighting local shows and he's exercising, those demons, and it's helping him out. Okay, cool. But when you have somebody like Bam Bam Rios, he brings out Mike Alvarado, so I'm going to bring up Bam Bam. We were in TJ for that fight against Humberto Soto, right? Here's the thing. I'm nobody to tell Bam Bam to retire, of course not, but I'm looking at the big picture. Where's he going to go at 47, right? Yeah. Who's he going to fight at 47? Is he going to fight Thurman? Is he going to fight Pacquiao? Is he going to fight Spence? Is he that top level? Or is he going to be a stepping stone for one of these young guys like Virgil and really get hurt, right? Yeah. So that's where I'm looking at the big picture. Like, you don't have nothing else to prove. As far as me, looking at the big picture, to me, Bam Bam doesn't have anything else to prove. He's a warrior. He's been in wars. I respect him. And again, I don't want to see him get hurt. I'm nobody to tell him to retire, but maybe his team, maybe his family need to look at the big picture. Look at your family, look at your kids. Yeah, you might have something inside you that wants to get back in the ring. But again, you need to weigh out those pros and cons, and look at some of these other guys that have been hit way too much. Look at Bobby Chacon at the end of his career.
But the truth is, at the end of the day, that's 90% of the boxing population, right? You look at it, and there's all kinds of cats who don't have winning records. So if you look at a given division, there's maybe 2,000 people that BoxRec says compete in the world. 500 of them have winning records, but all 2,000 of them are active. And it's not just guys who are old; there are young guys who just don't have it. And you can look at them and go, "You're not gonna peak beyond where you're at right now. Like you're never gonna be a world champion, But at the same time, like boxing, that's okay. Not everybody can be world champion, right? They're exercising.
I think in any sport,
That
not
is-
everybody's gonna be Michael Jordan.
That is okay, right? That is okay. But when you've peaked and you have been at that championship level and you ain't there no more, right? And you've been in these wars, why continue to punish yourself? I can understand if the kid is 23 or 24 and he's got a record of 12 and 13 and he's had a bunch of tough fights and they're using him because, okay, he's got 30 fights under his belt. We're going to have him fight a kid that's 11 and 0.
Yeah, it's experience, right?
Experience
versus youth.
as a measuring stick. And you know that this kid's probably not going to hurt him. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Who knows? But it's more of a training tool for a young kid. They're not throwing him in there with, somebody that's 21 and 0 with 20 knockouts, that it's going to sleep this guy for no damn reason. There's levels to it, and everybody has a place where if you've been in the game 12 years and you've been a world champion and now you're on the decline and you're on your way down and you're getting beat up by journeymen like Humberto Soto, why continue?
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the same time, we're kind of in violent agreement in the sense that we don't want to see people go on to get hurt and be permanently damaged for the rest of their lives. Like we're not in ancient Rome. I don't want to see men beat to death. I don't want to see cats, get brain damage on TV. I understand that part of this is entertainment, but at the same time, anytime you hear me say, I would hope to not see this fighter fight again. That's where it's coming from. It's just because
it's respect.
It's long-term health and respect.
And to me, especially, I don't want to see people come back who are doing greater things in boxing. Klitschko, Pacquiao, they're, politicians in their countries trying to help them out. I don't need to see in the ring, honestly.
Manny Pacquiao is one where I struggle with it because he definitely took a beating against Keith Thurman in a close fight that I thought that he won. But you also have to understand that he was fighting the man who was considered the number one welterweight in the world at the time. So you look at it and it's undefeated welterweight world champion who is arguably the number one, somewhere in the top 3 welterweights in the world. And that's who he won against. And yes, it was a very difficult fight for Manny Pacquiao, but that fight wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be an easy fight for Manny. Yeah. So he came out on top of it. And I think at this point, that's got to be one of the most challenging things is knowing, hey, I was still good enough to beat the best welterweight in the world, and I'm leaving millions of dollars and some other things on the table when I could arguably be number one right now. I could be number one. And that's kind of what Andre Ward did. And much respect to Andre Ward, he didn't come back, but he was the best in the world at that weight division and left millions on the table.
And here's where I wouldn't be mad with Pacquiao pulling a Floyd Mayweather type thing, maybe rematching somebody like, I don't know, maybe a Jeff Horn, or maybe something that's not going to be so much of a danger and still make millions of dollars off of it because people are still going to watch Manny fight.
Yep.
I mean.
So what names would you guys not want to see Manny get in the ring with?
Errol Spence.
All the top welterweights.
Errol Spence.
He should fight Jesse Vargas again. He should fight Adrien Broner again.
He should just fight Conor McGregor, make the millions, get the payday.
Is that the only name, Stax? Just Errol Spence? Is there anybody else?
Errol Spence, we don't even know the condition of Errol Spence and how he will return to form. You can make an argument that we won't see a peak version of Errol Spence again. We don't really know that until he returns to the ring, right? So Errol Spence is kind of a hard one. Like at this point, it's really just I hope Errol recovers and comes back and makes a good fight of it, right? For anyone else, you notice Terence Crawford is not ever on Manny Pacquiao's radar and has not been for years, right? So even when he was fighting with Top Rank in partnership with Bob Arum, Terence Crawford was still not under consideration by Manny. And when he lists people he's going to fight, Terence is kind of out the window. So I think at the end of the day, it's kind of, people like your Danny Garcias or some spectacle like a Conor McGregor or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I wouldn't want to see him against either Errol Spence or Terence Crawford. I think it's, they're too in their prime, too young, too strong in a way. I would like to see him against Mikey. I think that's a fight that would be style-wise entertaining, not too dangerous for Manny. Again, like you guys said, I feel like he's already proven he's already on overtime, the way Lily says it. So I think that would be a style match that would be enticing, that wouldn't be too high risk, and too dangerous.
It depends, I think, on how Mikey performs, though.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's got a fight in front of him right here that's not a sure thing for a couple reasons. So you look at it and you go, we got to wait and see.
No, that's a sure thing, dog.
Right?
It's Jesse Vargas. Come on.
That's Stax's homeboy. You better watch out, man.
Jesse Vargas.
Start a real fight.
Jesse got beat up by Broner, dog. Broner was throwing 10 punches in each round.
Jesse won the first half of the fight, I think, against Adrien Broner, and then lost the second half of the fight. So he actually was kind of on his way to coasting to victory. Yeah, he almost beat me up, actually. Tell him I didn't mean anything by it.
Should have stood up for yourself, Sean.
I told him what I meant. I clarified.
I'll direct this question to Stax. If Jesse Vargas does come out victorious, what are the keys to victory for him against Mikey?
I think that he has to turn it into a phone booth style fight. I think he has to close the gap on Mikey and fight on the inside.
He's bigger.
Hurt him, put him up against the ropes, go to the body. Hey.
It happens every show.
Against the ropes. No, I think he has to do that. Either that or he could even box from the outside. He's taller. He's got the reach. I mean, if he pulls an Errol Spence on him and just sits out there and boxes Mikey and doesn't allow Mikey to get inside.
I'm glad you said it that way, because everybody talked about the size disadvantage that Mikey had going into that fight and how much bigger Errol Spence was.
Bullshit.
And, well, I will say that he was bigger. I'm sure he is stronger, but he won because he outboxed Mikey Garcia.
Exactly.
He wasn't leaning on him with size. He wasn't
but the size
pushing
helps.
him around.
The size helps.
Sure,
so.
it doesn't.
The lane,
agreed.
the reach.
It helps in the sense that there's power and it can impact your ability to
Errol
take a punch.
wouldn't do that against a 154-pounder or a 160-pounder, which are guys his
But
size.
Mikey is not, though.
But I'm saying he wouldn't do that against a guy his size.
But at the end of the day, what was it that Mikey lost from? Was it Errol's size? Is that really what you think?
It's a part of it.
No,
yeah,
didn't have
sure it
anything
is.
to do with it.
Sure it is. No, I think it does. Because it does for two reasons. One is because it impacts the power of your punches.
It's like saying Lomachenko's size didn't have an advantage over Rigo. He's the first one to tell you that was a factor in the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
You think so? You think that Loma's size was a factor over Rigo?
It was one of the factors.
One of the factors. Skills was the
Yeah.
most.
Skills.
He's a lot more
can't
skillful,
say,
but
say,
it was one of the factors.
You can't say that it's not a factor, right? Because it is. Like height is a factor.
You could take a
size
better
is
punch.
Factor. All those things are factors. But the question is,
Shaq was good, but he
what
had
was
a
the
size
best-
advantage
is that
over
the
everybody.
main?
Yeah,
Is
what was
that
the
the
main
reason that
factor?
Mikey Garcia lost? Like those were no. It was not. He was just outboxed.
He was
He
outboxed,
lost.
exactly.
He was just. Errol Spence was better on the day. Like that's it.
I mean, same thing.
Like-
Same thing with Manny and Oscar De La Hoya. Everybody, Manny,
Come
Oscar's
on,
so
man.
big.
That was
Oscar's
45. What are you
Oscar's
talking
so
about?
big. This and that. It's about skills.
Skills.
It's about skills, man.
Like Rigondeaux, the truth of the matter is, when you look at Rigondeaux and Lomachenko, is size a factor? Yes. Was Lomachenko winning by abusing his size? Was he leaning all over Rigondeaux? Was he pushing him around? Was he doing that? No. The truth is, he stood there and he boxed his ass off, right? That's what happened. That's exactly what Errol Spence did to Mikey Garcia.
But it makes it
He
a
stood
lot
there
more
and he boxed
easy.
his ass
A
off.
lot more easy when you're bigger.
You
Yeah,
think
well,
so?
you know why? Because the truth of the matter is, in all combat sports, not just in boxing, there is no sport or discipline where it is made for small people to be able to beat up big people who are equally as skilled as them.
Yeah.
Right? It just does not work that way. If you have two men who are equally schooled, right, and one is small and one is big, the big one has a lot of advantage in that fight, and that is true against Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence. But the point is in order for that to be an advantage, they have to be equally skilled.
Yeah.
It's not an advantage if you suck compared to your opponent.
To me, this fight was that fight was mentally draining for Mikey, because like there's this guy outboxing you, and that's what you're known for, your boxing.
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, he's just outboxing
Just
me.
sticking a jab on me all day long.
Yeah, it seemed like if he wanted to, he could impose his size, but he wasn't really using that. You know, that other facet of his game. So
yeah, so I agree with you in the sense that, when two people have equal training, if we're of equal skill, but I'm bigger than you, I have a huge advantage, right? If you're way more skilled than me, it's not really a huge advantage. And at the end of the day, it's they were either equally or more skilled than Mikey Garcia and Rigondeaux, respectively.
When I think of size, I think of De La Hoya Hopkins, where in the first beginning of the match, De La Hoya was outboxing him. Smaller man, outboxing the bigger man, but then the size.
Yeah.
That-
Well, you could see, like, for instance, very
Triple G
recently,
killed Brooke.
Franchon Cruz,
Uh-huh.
right? That fight is very much about an individual who has a
Yes.
massive size advantage,
Mhm.
right? Because and that's someone who's using that size advantage. Someone who also did this, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., is someone who utilized a size advantage. How did he do it? He walked right through punches. He's not a better boxer than Andy Lee. Right? He's not a better boxer than Andy Lee, but he won. Why did he win? Because
Hey,
he's
Chavez
huge.
isn't that bad, dude.
But
Come
he's not
on.
better than Andy Lee. That's I
I feel
didn't say
like
it was,
people disrespect his
No,
skill.
I'm
He's
not
just
saying
not
he's
applied.
bad.
He's not focused.
Yeah,
but I think he's
but
pretty good.
I'm not saying he's bad, but he's not better than Andy Lee, is my opinion,
Yeah.
at boxing,
Yeah.
right? But he won. Why did he win? Because has this tremendous size advantage, and he used it by walking through punches, eating punches until someone gets so tired that all you have
And
to
he
do
almost got Sergio.
is land. Yeah, and he almost got Sergio the same way, right? Just walk and take the punches the whole fight, and then land one that matters.
Same thing
That's
with-
not what happened though with Errol Spence, and that's why I think it's
Yeah.
different. That did not happen with Rigondeaux. That's not what happened. They were outboxed.
Yeah.
yeah.
You talk about size again. Look at Better Beef and Vodzik.
Oh yeah.
You know,
That's true. Yeah, that's
both,
true.
both, you know, equally skilled, but Better Beef was just the
He's
bigger,
scary. He's the
stronger
bigger
man.
guy.
That-
yeah,
that guy's
he's just
scary.
a bigger guy. But yeah, that's when it manifests.
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a question for you guys. Do you guys have Better Beef in your top 10 pound for pound after that performance, or
That's a
slightly
good
outside?
question. I haven't really taken the time to sit down and do a top 10 pound
Yeah.
for pound, to be honest, because
Glad you
it's
asked.
so subjective. It is so subjective
Yeah.
that we're talking about how people who are never going to fight stack up against
I don't think it should be that subjective though,
but it really is, though.
because the resume, all the fights are on paper.
Yeah, but if you look at first of all,
But
you
what
can't.
constitutes a pound for you? I said, what
Yeah.
constitute a pound for you might not constitute what it means to us. What does it mean? What's the
You sound like a
definition? What's the
judge.
meaning?
Every
You sound like a boxing judge.
and that's the other thing is everybody's resume is on paper, and the point is that if I want to make a case or not make a case for it, I can do that by dissecting someone's resume on paper. So you'll hear people do it all the time with Canelo Alvarez, with Floyd Mayweather. They'll
Yeah.
point to these fights, and these ones were handpicked, and this one was too early, and that one was too late, and this one was, and for that reason I give it to someone else. So the fact that everything's on paper is never enough, because we're going to disagree about plenty of things, even though they're in the record book straight. Oh yeah, but that one was early, and that one was late, and this guy was handpicked, and this guy didn't matter.
Oh, and he lost to Salido.
Yeah, he lost to Salido. That's probably one of the best examples.
Yeah.
I could say Lomachenko's top 5 pound for pound, and anybody who wants to argue against it is just going to go, yeah, but he lost to Salido. He was too big for Rigondeaux. He knocked out Anthony Corolla in this
And
fight.
then you just say who has
Right.
2 Olympic gold medals, and then
Yeah.
they shut up.
no, but they don't shut up.
Yeah.
That's the point.
He
That's
went
why
the-
it's subjective.
He went the distance
That's
with
why it's subjective.
Pedraza, and Davis knocked him out.
Yeah, Davis knocked out Pedraza.
And
Like,
Loma couldn't.
there's so many different things that you hear for each one of these that it just makes it so entirely subjective. Like, I can say that if you tell me that you think Canelo, Terence Crawford, or Lomachenko are in the top pound for pound fighters 3, okay, right? They're all excellent, right? They're all great fighters.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. So, like, I think at the end of the day, I'm not too picky on, like, top 10 or not top 10. I think the only person that I'd never understood for a very long time is Anthony Joshua.
Why is he not? Why was he in the top 10?
Yeah, I had a hard
Olympic
time with
gold
that.
medal.
Yeah,
He beat Klitschko. He beat Dillian White. He
Yeah,
has a
but
pretty good
this-
resume.
yeah, but it's pound for pound. I don't think of it about resume. The idea is that if you are all the same size, so if all fighters, this is how I interpret it.
Yeah,
I
okay.
interpret it as if all fighters were
Yeah.
equally the same size, how would these people rank against each other?
Yeah.
And the truth is that when it comes to Anthony Joshua,
He'll
right,
fuck a lot of people
he
up.
is always the bigger man,
Yeah.
right?
It's
He's
kinda hard to
he's
imagine
always
him.
the bigger man. He's always the biggest guy in the ring, right? And so at the end of the day, you go, okay, if you equalize him and he was Lomachenko's size, who's a better boxer?
Well, then
well,
look.
Lomachenko's a better boxer, right? So,
I can make the same
So
case about
you
Errol
look-
Spence.
you know, you could.
He's a bigger guy against every welterweight.
Yeah,
He's
so
fighting 2 weight classes below
I agree.
his
But
real.
by that same token, I could also tell you that Deontay Wilder, though, is 212 pounds and fighting men who have 50 pounds on him. When Mikey Garcia
well, you
moves
can
up,
say he's in better shape than they are.
when Mikey Garcia moves up 7 pounds, we have a fit right? And we think it's the craziest thing that he's ever done in his career. When Deontay Wilder's 212 pounds and he fights a man who's 250, we go, he's a heavyweight. That doesn't matter, right? So it's that's why it's so subjective.
Yeah,
it's very subjective.
It's a little bit tough for the heavyweights because most of the time they only have that division to get
they don't go up and
by.
down. Yeah, no heavyweight ever goes up and down. So how do they make the pound for pound list unless you're naturally a super small guy?
Yeah, when I think of pound for pound, I tend to think about the divisions like if they're, if they start at one and they go up and they win titles.
And is Adrien Broner was he once upon a time in your pound for pound since he was going up divisions and winning titles?
I wouldn't say he was in my top 10, but maybe top 15 at one time. At one time, maybe.
I don't like that argument.
So who do you have on the list there? Who's number one?
Okay, so
Canelo?
I have Canelo number one.
Okay.
And so one of those is resume.
No argument.
Resume. Number 2, Vasil Lomachenko.
Okay, no argument.
Okay, number 3, Alexander Usyk.
I used to have him 3.
Number 4, I have Naoya Inoue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 5, I have Errol Spence Jr.
We're getting out of here just by virtue of the fact that Terence Crawford is not in your top 5.
Yes.
So
I'll tell you why.
He shouldn't be. He is not ranked number 1 in his division.
I'll tell you why. I used to have him number 2, number 3. Just another criteria that I have for pound for pound is what have you done lately?
Okay.
And so,
who has Terence Crawford fought? That's my question.
So number 6, I have Terence Crawford.
Who has he fought?
Number 7.
What do you mean who has he fought?
Who has he fought?
He was an undisputed 140-pound world champion.
Who did he fight to win those titles? See, I hate that argument because he won like 3 fights to get all the titles against guys who had a couple losses.
The thing that I don't understand, though, is like, okay, so I get what you're saying, right?
Usyk should be ranked above him because he has an Olympic gold medal and he did the undisputed thing as well.
Usyk was an undisputed champion as well. They're the only 2 on the list.
But since he doesn't fight for ESPN,
the thing that I don't agree with, the thing that I don't agree with, Gio, is you make it sound like it's easy. But if it was easy, everybody would do it, and nobody has done it. There's only 2 guys on that entire list who have done it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And that's Terence Crawford and Alexander Usyk.
So
if it's so easy and you don't have to beat anybody, you just beat nobodies and get your undisputed championship. We just hand them out like they're fucking
Does that make them better fighters than other guys?
Excuse my language.
Does that make them better fighter than all those guys? Because
it is
he
an
beat guys who weren't really highly ranked in the world.
Yeah, like, but what do you mean? What do you mean?
Huh?
Hold
but
on.
Who's beat him?
Hold on. When you say they're not highly ranked in the world, he's
all those
beating guys who are highly ranked in the world. What are you talking
division?
about?
In that division, I'm talking about as a whole.
They're the highest ranked fighters in the division.
Can you say that Usyk beat the top fighters at cruiserweight?
Oh my god! Yeah, just like Terence Crawford beat the top fighters at 140 pounds.
No. I don't think you're understanding the question.
I agree that Terence Crawford. I disagree with Gio. I believe Postol, Ongo. These guys were highly rated at that moment, at that time.
Yeah,
at that moment.
Of course they were. They were the highest rated fighters in the world.
I do give him his props for getting the division together, becoming undisputed. I think I had him 2-3 at one point.
He beat a lot of guys who won vacant titles.
Yeah, with me, it's just
people don't look at that stuff.
With me, it's just like, what have you done lately? And he hasn't, competed with
his best
elite
win
level.
Let me just say one thing.
His best win was against a 122-pound
Gamboa. But that's not his fault that he hasn't had this elite level, fights. We clearly know he wants.
True, but let me.
He doesn't have the resume of.
Okay.
Almost any
Let
of
me
those
just
guys
say one
in the
thing.
top
This
10.
is a perfect example. So you remember I told you can look at anyone's resume and you can start dissecting and discrediting or favoring people based on their resume. This is a really good example because that's effectively what you're doing. Mikey Garcia picked up one of his belts off of Sergey Lipinets, who at the time had only 13 professional fights and never held a world title, and he picked up a vacant belt. Yet we sit
He's
here
better
and
than all of Crawford's opponents.
That's debatable. That's debatable. Like, he hasn't gone on to accomplish remarkable things yet in his career. Now he could be good, but what I'm saying is you're more critical, for instance, of Terence Crawford than it sounds like you are of a Mikey Garcia. At the end of the day,
Mikey Garcia beat a lot of killers before that.
Okay, like who?
Orlando Salido, Juanma Lopez. Who else did he beat? Pull it up.
He's got a
Broner.
knockout of the year.
Broner.
He has Broner's resume. Those 3 names are better than anybody.
Trashing Broner earlier.
List.
So you
guaranteed.
You think Terence Crawford?
Look it up. You can look it up all you want. Do your homework.
So you think Terence Crawford? You think Terence Crawford would not tune up Adrien Broner?
I'm not saying that. He hasn't showed it.
So
how can you judge somebody if they haven't showed it?
How are you gonna feel if by chance Postal stops or beats Ramirez next Saturday in China?
Yeah.
how's that going to change your opinion of
It won't.
Crawford?
No
It's
way.
not. It's not.
It wouldn't?
Right? Because you're
That's pretty
subjective
crazy. Yeah.
against Crawford.
This is
This is Ramirez at his prime. This
at
is
the
his
end of the
prime
day,
champion.
you can pick apart anyone's resume. I could look at Canelo's resume and pick it apart.
Yeah.
People pick apart Floyd's all the time. But the
But
truth
they have
is,
names.
But the
Crawford,
truth is,
you need some names.
At the end of the day, Terence Crawford has accomplished things in this sport that most fighters never do in their entire career,
Yeah.
and most of the people on that list will not do.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a very good chance that
They
Canelo
can do it. That
So
doesn't mean.
it's easy, right? We just hand it out like candy. All they have to do is just go fight some
Are you telling me
unknown
Canelo
people.
can't be anybody in 160?
No, I'm telling you that by the end of his career, there's a very good chance he has never been an undisputed champion.
That doesn't make him any better or any.
It is an
That's better.
accomplishment. What do you mean? I'm not saying it makes anyone
You're,
better or worse. I'm saying it's an accomplishment. I didn't say he's better than Canelo.
that's your only argument for Crawford, that he's undisputed, right?
My only argument? No.
Dude,
it's not
when
my
he
only
beat
argument.
Postal,
Yeah.
Postal was just coming off a big win of Matisse. He had just
Matisse,
knocked out Matisse,
yeah.
made him quit.
Okay,
at the StubHub
one
Center,
great
right?
win.
I'm not saying.
It's not
One great win.
To be clear,
He had 0 defenses of his title.
I wasn't saying that he's better than Canelo. I wasn't saying that he's better than
I'm gonna
Canelo.
piss this guy off right now because I'm gonna use a name which is one of his favorite fighters, right?
Uh-huh.
Who do you think's a better fighter, man? Crawford or Cotto?
Who?
Crawford or Cotto?
Crawford.
Better than Cotto, right?
Yeah.
Because who did Cotto really beat? Right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Such a recency
Right?
bias.
no, I'm just saying, man. Because I mean, if you wanna look at resumes, you can look
Yeah.
at resumes all you want.
Mhm.
And if you go down Cotto's
Yeah, I don't
resumes, he
rate-
lost every big fight.
I don't
Big
rate
fight, yeah.
Cotto very highly.
What do you mean it lost every big? See, this is
He
Oh,
beat
yeah.
Shane Mosley.
Again,
That was his best
here's
win.
why it's subjective. When you say every
Man,
big fight,
people are too biased to fucking admit the facts.
what facts?
You got to
What
beat
facts?
somebody, Crawford. Beat somebody.
You
All right, he beat Postal. Cool. I'll give you one name. What else?
you mean aside from Jeff Horn coming
mean,
off
you're
a win of Manny
struggling here.
Pacquiao?
Yeah.
But no, I mean aside from Jeff Horn, who beat Manny Pacquiao, the
Jeff
guy
Horn-
who
okay,
just beat
Jeff
the,
Horn. That's
the number
your
one
second,
welterweight in
that's
the
your
world,
second name, Jeff Horn.
right?
All right. So he
aside
beat
from Amir
Postal.
Khan,
He beat Jeff Horn. Who else he beat?
Amir Khan doesn't count.
No.
Okay.
No, that doesn't count.
Yeah, but see, like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who I name
Okay.
because you're just
Keep
going to
going
tell me
with
they
your
don't
list, man.
count.
Because this guy's
So,
mind
well,
ain't gonna
well,
change.
hold
If
on,
he doesn't
there's-
like Crawford, his mind isn't gonna change.
You just got to look at the facts.
No, but they're
you got to look at the facts.
the things that you consider facts. Like for instance, you say he never beat any of his big fights. There are fights that are his big fights, and at the time, they're against undefeated opponents who are big names and they're big fights. In retrospect, you look back now and go, that wasn't a big fight because it was against Paulie Malignaggi. Only Paulie Malignaggi
pretty
was
good.
undefeated at the time when Cotto fought him and beat him, right? And you can go through that and you'll see that there's a bunch of times where Cotto's fighting someone 23-0, 22-0.
Yeah.
Those are the biggest fights of his career at that point, meaning in his career, that's the biggest fight. Paulie Malignaggi, biggest fight of his career at that point, right?
Yeah.
But now you look back at it and go, oh, that was Paulie Malignaggi. It wasn't a big fight. It was big. It was big at the time that it happened, right? Like look at Ricky Hatton. People always say like, "Oh, it's no big deal. Floyd beats Ricky Hatton,
was
right?"
undefeated, right?
Ricky Hatton was an undefeated
Lightweight
140-pound
yeah.
champion, right? When he was beaten, like Robert Guerrero was an undefeated 2-division world champion when he was beaten. These guys, like we look at it now, oh, Robert Guerrero. That's how people react to it, right? But the truth
Yeah, because
is,
he had never fought at 147.
No, he
had one
did.
fight at 140.
no, he fought at 147.
Against, no, I don't think he
Against
did.
Andre
Maybe one
Berto.
fight.
Andre Berto.
No, that was 140.
Are
No, I
you
think
sure
it's
about that?
147.
I think that was
I'm pretty
47,
sure it was
brother.
140.
Can we look it
Because
up?
Berto wasn't at 47
Fact
at
check
the
that.
time.
Fact check
And,
that. Can I get a fact
Robert
check?
Guerrero was
Let
going
me
this
log,
way.
let me log in.
To
No,
Sean's
but you
point-
cannot.
my-
You cannot. You have to be at least ranked number 1 in your division to be at least in the top 5.
No, but my point is
As a
with
point,
this
and he's not. So
is it's easy for people, Stax, for you to look back at someone's career and say, yeah, that fight wasn't meaningful, or that's not a big fight, or that wasn't a big opponent. But the truth is, at the time they occurred, they were. You look back at them now and you
we
criticize
get it. Jeff
them.
Horn was a killer. Sean, we get it.
Jeff Horn had just beat Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Manny
All right.
Pacquiao, who at 40 years old just reclaimed a welterweight world championship. Yeah, that
Yeah.
guy.
Speaking about Manny Pacquiao, I have him at number 7. Manny Pacquiao, number 7. And it's because of what he's done.
He
you
fought
know, in
Guerrero
the
at
past year.
47.
47.
Yeah, 47.
Boom.
Number 8, Gennady Golovkin. I think he's falling off a little bit, and he's obviously not, in his prime anymore, but I have him at number 8. Number 9, Mikey Garcia. I think he fell off a little bit, just taking that loss, but he doesn't lose a lot. He lost to, a great a top fighter in Errol Spence. And number 10, I have Artur Beterbiev. I think he, kind of upset that Ukrainian apple cart, and he kind of made a stamp in that division, which I don't think anybody can touch him at that division. But 10, and honorable mention for 11th is Gallito Estrada. I was a little undecided about who's at the top 10, but I think that's pretty respectable list thus far. Of course, it's all subjective,
It's all subjective, but most of those names are. So, is your opinion that Terence Crawford shouldn't even be on that list?
On top 10?
Yeah.
He should be on there. 5 through 10 somewhere.
Okay.
To me, that
We're
was
off by like 2 positions, and this guy's biting my head off.
But you threw his list off because he wasn't in the top 5.
I said
when
he's losing.
He has no merit to be in the top 5.
He's
To
losing
me,
at
he has
number
no
5.
merit to be in
to
the
me,
top 5.
to me, he's 4 through 6. I just think he hasn't just done
his
enough
career
the last 2 years. And
What
it's
has
not-
he done in
it's
the
not
last
his
2
fault.
years?
It's not his fault.
Yeah,
I think
his career.
It's BBC that's keeping those fights. From
Watch too
career-
much ESPN, Sean.
No, his career is not all unlike Alexander Usyk's as a professional. Now, admittedly, Usyk also has the Olympics and the amateur and all that stuff. But in terms of their professional careers, they're not all dissimilar. They went through and they unified a division where I would assert that you can't name most of the people who are in that division at the time that they unified it, became undisputed world champions. He's gone on to heavyweight, has not proved anything at heavyweight. He had one fight at heavyweight. He got hit a little bit, right? Knocked a guy out.
But you know
And
why
that's
I give
all
him
he's
a
done.
pass? Because it's
That's all
one
he's done.
fight. How many fights does Crawford have at 47?
3?
3. Yeah.
3 against
Jeff
Amir
Horn
Khan, Jeff
none of the
Horn.
top 5 at all.
Jeff
Nowhere
Horn was a world
near.
champion.
and Benavides.
What do you mean none of the top? He beat a world
Oh
champion.
my God, we get it. Jeff Horn is a killer. We get it.
No, but I,
You don't have
They just
Taylor
had-
or Ramirez on your list anywhere?
Who?
Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez?
That's close. That's
Man,
like
you
12,
gotta be
12,
names.
13,
You
12,
gotta be
13.
names.
12, 13.
see, like, to
So
me,
Regis wasn't a name, right?
That's one.
Oh, no. Josh Taylor.
That is one.
what about
He's a
what
unified
about
champion.
That is one.
No,
name.
Josh Taylor.
Brienne-Check or
So,
whatever.
so like somebody
Made a
from
case.
40
That's a
then.
cute name and all, but you got.
what
that's
about
one
Ivan?
name.
What about Ivan Brienne-Check?
Yeah, that was
Taylor
Taylor
arguably has a case at Fighter of the Year this
Yeah,
year.
he does. Yeah.
Like so, you look at it and he started the year without a title belt in 2019 and beat 2 undefeated fighters that he was the underdog against. Canelo
yeah.
just beat people that we thought he would beat already. Like
It's not his fault. He's so good, dude.
right?
How is this
I'm
his
not
fault?
saying it's his
Who
fault.
said it's his fault?
No,
Nobody
what I'm
said
saying.
it's his fault, man. You're very sensitive. I realize when I bring
Canelo's
up
creating
No,
Canelo,
because you could
I
say the
should-
same thing about Mayweather. He
I should
beat,
stop
like,
using him
that shouldn't
as
be
an
used
example.
against him.
I
Like
should-
Mayweather, he beat all the guys.
I could see that I should stop using Canelo as an example.
No, Josh Taylor makes a case. Josh Taylor makes a case for the top 10.
He could have made Fighter of the Year in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought Prograis was gonna win that match. I was very
A
surprised.
lot of people did. A lot of people
that
did.
the skill that he showed plus the heart and will, because
Yeah.
that was a heart and will kind
So,
of match.
Look, in 1 year, the guy won a world title, unified that world title against 2 undefeated fighters that were favored against him, and won the WBSS. Got the Muhammad Ali trophy. That's more than any other fighter at that level really accomplished in 1 year's time.
Yeah,
Right. So
yeah. Well, if Ramirez and Taylor do fight, you're gonna unify division. Would it be undisputed or no? Or is there a vacant title still out there?
that's
There's
no
another
Ramirez
title.
has them both, right?
As in both.
I
Josh
think
Taylor,
there's a title another title at 40 though. That's out there.
that's out there.
Isn't
huh?
it 2? They don't have 2 and 2 right now.
I believe so, but
Yeah, I might be mistaken. I'm probably missing someone who's obvious, but
Yeah, because the winner of this one would get the same accolades that Usyk and Crawford have.
Yeah,
and
so-
obviously this is like, what have you done lately? Those guys
Yeah.
would skyrocket up there.
but
to the
in what way are they? So basically, the reason that those 2 careers are so dissimilar to you is because Usyk has only had 1 fight at heavyweight, and Crawford has had 3 fights at welterweight.
I'm not talking about careers. I'm talking about recently.
what have you done lately? I
Oh,
guess.
okay.
Yeah.
Usyk slipped down on my list because he didn't do much last year. Crawford hasn't done much in the past couple of years.
Yeah. I still
Aside from winning a welterweight world title.
yeah.
Jeff Horn.
I'll go on record. I'll go on record. And I'll say that I do believe Terence Crawford is the best welterweight. I do think if he does fight Errol Spence does have a size advantage, very skilled. But I think the dog in Terence Crawford beats him. I think, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. So I have him ranked a little bit lower.
You know
right
my
now.
opinion.
I have him ranked a little bit lower, but just because of the powers that be, the matches that haven't been made. I know Gio doesn't like when we say that, but it's true.
Excuses.
So yeah. Errol
Man,
Spence.
It's not my
This
fault
is
I
like-
haven't
Errol-
fought
This
anybody.
is like a really,
Errol Spence is just
a
hired.
really sensitive topic.
You know, because I feel like people are so brainwashed that
so
they don't
here's-
actually look at the
Here's
facts.
Gio. It's not my fault I haven't fought anybody, right? But then you say something about Canelo. It's not his
And
fault
that-
he fought that
That's
guy.
exactly.
It's not his fault he fought the worst, the guy at 175. It's
That's-
not Canelo's fault.
This is why you could pick
Come on,
apart
man.
anyone's. I could go tear to pieces Sugar Ray Robinson's resume and tell you that, but there's no point.
Go for it.
Especially
I wanna hear it.
no,
For
especially,
real.
What I mean is,
I wanna hear
you
this.
can. I mean, it's actually not all that
Yeah.
difficult to do. But at the end of the day, the point is he's an exceptional fighter.
Yeah.
Canelo's an exceptional fighter. Alexander Usyk, the guys that we're talking about, they're exceptional fighters. They're not just good, right? Like they're not just good. They're great fighters, right? And you look at it, and that's why I think in terms of like ranking them individually, these are guys who can never really compete against each other conceivably most of the time. And is anyone really going to look at that list and go, no, those guys aren't great fighters. Canelo doesn't belong in there. You know what I mean? Except for Gio throwing out Terence Crawford. I think, I'm just kidding, Gio. I'm just kidding. But the point is like, I can't imagine that anybody's going to look at that list and do anything other than go, oh, I think this guy should be 11 and someone else should crack the
He
top
threw
10.
out his list, Sean.
I didn't throw out his list.
yeah. What Davis say when he fought this cat?
Oh, yeah.
When he fought Gamboa, right? What did he say? He said that if I beat Gamboa more impressively than Terence Crawford, then I belong in the top 10 pound per pound. Right? Well, he didn't even beat him more impressively than Robinson Castellano. So there's Robinson Castellano.
Top
You
10
know,
pound for pound.
Should he be a top 10?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, where does that put him with Robinson?
Exactly.
Michael, you already know I said I'm a fun guy.
Hola amigos, soy Juan Francisco Gallo. Quiero mandar un saludo para mis amigos de Contra las Cuerdas, que se le muchas ganas, un abrazo, muchas bendiciones.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. You know what mine is? Let's box bitches. It's almost fight night.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you for the support. Keep doing your thing. You're doing a great job. So thank you and best wishes.
Against the Ropes. Huge shout out to Against the Ropes. Against the Ropes.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you guys for the interview, and hope to see you guys soon.
Against the Ropes, always doing the right thing.
Shout out to Against the Ropes, man. I appreciate you guys for having me, taking the time out y'all day.
Against the Ropes, #1.
Freddie Roach.
Thank you very much.